Hi everyone, Duke Danger here. Now, welcome to this week's edition of Duke Danger. Me, sat in my attic, talking about nothing in particular. I haven't played any new games this week because I'm poor. So, I want to talk about something that's been bugging me lately, and that is this argument. Nintendo need new IPs. Their games are boring. Well, yeah, on a certain level, I respect that, and I suggest that's sort of true. I mean, they can't continue making Zelda games forever, or Mario games forever, because I will be honest, Mario has gotten very stale. Um, but then, Nintendo have always been quite innovative with their new games. They don't make the same game every single year, such as, Ubisoft, Activision, Treyarch, even Lionhead a little while ago. Um, I think the argument falls sort of flat when you consider that they've always tried to keep their old IPs interesting to new players. I mean, Metroid Prime, for instance, was fantastic. Metroid Prime 2 was sort of the same game, but it was a lot harder, so it was more like a masterclass in Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime 3, sort of the same game, but was really made just to show off the Wii's motion capture capabilities. Um, Not motion capture, movement control capabilities. You know what I mean. But I think it's a tricky one to approach, to be honest, because I do think they do need something new, and that they do need some new ideas. But I don't understand why people think that characters make a game. I very much disagree with that. I mean, if you look at all of the Assassin's Creed games after 2, um, it was all Ezio, then it was the really boring Connor Kenway, and I believe it's now Edward Kenway or something, who's probably going to be just as boring, and just as shit a game. I'll hopefully be able to review that next week, either that or something else. But no, Borderlands as well, for instance. Borderlands 2 was the same game with more weapons and slightly better maps. The Gears of War series, they're all the same game with slightly different stories. Even games that aren't really part of the same IP. I mean, the Call of Duty franchise has always been very much the same, and they're technically not the same IP, as they do all contain different ideas, albeit not different gameplay, different guns, different enemies. And the characters are all very much the same. I think the only thing that the other consoles have up on the Wii and the Wii U currently is that they have more third-party support, and I think that's what's going to damage Nintendo, not new IPs. Because their old IPs all have one thing in common, and that's that they all hold a nostalgia value for old-time Nintendo fans, which, as it happens, I'm not. I was raised with Sega. But no, I mean, currently, I think the Wii U is the best console I've ever bought. But then they haven't released many of their old IPs on the Wii U. I mean, Wind Waker HD is the only one that immediately springs to mind. I'm probably wrong about that. But Xbox had a much wider variety of games and game types, albeit a lot of them were the same. I mean, Bungie are probably my most hated company at the minute, because Halo, I don't care what anyone says, Halo was a pile of shit. Even from Combat Evolved, I thought it was shit. It was boring. Master Chief was a twat who held no interest to me at all. And now they've stopped making Halo, which I thought, great, maybe they can go back to making good games. And they're making Destiny, I think I've got the title right. And it's the same fucking game. It just looks like a reskin. And people are complaining that Nintendo don't have any new IPs. Well, Microsoft don't have any new IPs. Sony probably do, but they always have, because they've had a much larger team behind them. But no, I think that if Nintendo need new IPs, so do most of the other companies. I think it's unfair to generalise. I mean, if you compare For example, Wind Waker HD with Ocarina of Time, they're two completely different games, albeit with a similar story. But how do you judge a game on its overarching story? I mean, I judge a game on how fun it is to play. I don't really give a shit about the story. Um, the Arkham games, for instance, I think are all very similar. Arkham City, yeah, had an open world, but then to a certain degree so did Arkham Asylum, and they just increased it. And Arkham Origins, from what I understand, and hopefully I'll be able to review that in 2 weeks when it comes out on the Wii U, because I don't really want to play it on the Xbox, is probably going to be exactly the same with a much larger city. But I don't care because it's fun to play, and that's all that matters to me, really. The Saints Row games. Admittedly, Saints Row 3 was wank, and I thought it was dull as fuck. Saints Row 2, however, was fantastic, but those are all the same game, really. But it doesn't matter because they're fun to play. And the story's all the same. You come up from nothing, become leader of the world, or whatever the fuck they decide they're going to do this time. But no, the argument behind IPs is a false economy. You want new IPs, but the new IPs you get are the same as the old IPs. Sometimes you've got to look back a bit further, maybe 10, 15 years, but you essentially get the same game. I mean, Microsoft, a lot of the games that came out last year on Microsoft were just remakes of older games. I mean, you had Syndicate, for instance, which was a very old game, actually. But all they did was turn it into a third-person shooter, like every other fucking game. Which is another point I'd like to make. You keep calling for new IPs, but Nintendo don't have this problem with making every game a third-person shooter, every promising game anyway. Now, I don't have a PS3, but I'd really like one, but I have managed to play, I've forgotten the fucking name of the game now. That zombie game with a really heartfelt story. I thought that was really, really good. I quite liked the story, but all of its potential was lost on the fact that it became a cover shooter. The Splinter Cell games have become cover shooters, and it's massively disappointing. Even GTA 5, to a lot of it, was down to cover shooting. I mean, what happened to the fun days when cover was something you'd use if you were just a pussy and you didn't want to fight? I miss those days. I'm bored of all this cover shooting bollocks. At least Assassin's Creed, as boring as those games are, haven't reduced themselves to cover shooting yet. Skate 4 will probably be cover shooting. Kingdoms of Amalur 2 will probably be cover shooting. Games as a whole are becoming boring, and I don't think it's down to old IPs. I think it's down to people not wanting to innovate, people wanting to keep everything as simple as they can for their own sake. That's all I've got to say, really. Again, that's all my own feelings. Sorry if I was a little slow on that video. I've been to the hospital again and they've changed my pain meds, so brain's a little bit struggling to keep up with my mouth at the minute. But once again, I won't edit. Once I get more viewers, because at the minute there's only like 3 people watching these. Once I get more viewers, if people want me to edit, I will edit. Next week I'm looking to either do Assassin's Creed 4, if for any other reason than I want to actually finish the series. Hopefully, which will probably take 50 years with the rate they're churning them out. Or WWE 14, or 2K14, which I also hold a lot of interest in because I fucking love the WWE games. That's it, I'm afraid. Sorry again about me being a little slow today and not really knowing where my mouth is going. I did plan all this before it came on, although it is unscripted. But again, pain medication. I will chat to you all next week. I hope you enjoyed, and if you like, please do subscribe, because I have 8 subscribers, and that's depressing. Thank you all. Duke Danger, out.